Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have not filmed a sit down video like this, I think in over a year. But I was trying to figure out how to upload some of the kind of behind the scenes footage that I have of the wedding, because I didn't want to upload it just in and of itself vlog style, because one, there's not enough footage, and two, some of the footage is a bit weird. We'll get into that why later. And obviously I will upload our full professional videos if and when I have them. I'm still waiting on them very impatiently. But I do have some little clips of the day, and I did want to film something else about it, because the vlogs, I vlogged right up until 2 days before the wedding. The day before the wedding we had our rehearsal in the church in the morning. Hang on, let me check. Got my ring light out. I don't know if that's helping the lighting at all, but we'll leave it as it is. Yeah, so the day before the wedding we had the rehearsal at the church in the morning, and then we had a nice brunch with some of the wedding party, and then it really was just rushing around getting all of our stuff together to go up to the Gledach, which is the hotel we got married at. So we had like everything in the car, everything for the wedding the next day. We went up, we got checked in, and then that evening we had a nice dinner, again with like the immediate family and stuff. And I decided not to vlog that day, and I kind of regret it now. I wish I had vlogged it, because I love vlogging just to have the memories and the moments so that I can look back on them. Like, I watched my hen party vlog 2 days ago, and it's the worst vlog ever. Like, it's so patchy, it's chaos, but the little clips that I do have of like me and my friends and like me and my mum dancing and stuff, like I want to have them. Because yeah, I love YouTube as a platform and I love being able to share all of this, but first and foremost, I vlog and I make YouTube videos for my own memories. Like, usually the sit down videos I won't watch back, but the vlogs I will always watch back. So I do kind of regret not vlogging that day, but I was very much in the mindset of, I want to be in the moment, I want to enjoy this moment as it is, like with my own eyes and not behind a camera lens, which I still stand by. And another reason for not vlogging that day is because I gave my vlogging camera to one of the wedding guests, and I asked her to get just some behind the scenes videos on the day. I made the mistake in thinking it would be common sense to film it landscape. She filmed most videos portrait. I did fix it in the edit, but instead of it being full screen it will be kind of like straight up and down. But it was lovely to have those videos to look back on in this moment in time where we're waiting to get all the footage back from the professional photographer, which is what I wanted. So first things first, let's talk about my dress. My dress is by a designer called Justin Alexander, and I fell in love with it. As soon as that dress was put on me, before it was even zipped up, I knew it was my dress. I tried on my dress at Wedding Wise in Barhead. It's a town very close to where I live, and it was my first dress appointment, and I was like, no, I'm not going to commit to a dress right now. I'm not going to buy one. I'm only home for a week. I booked into 3 different shops to try on dresses to kind of cover all bases. And I tried on a lot of dresses at Wedding Wise, and I liked a lot of them. And then I think I'll insert the footage here of me trying on my dress for the first time. And I'd seen it on the website, and I had actually sent that dress as kind of an example photo to Elaine. But for whatever reason, we hadn't tried it on in the appointment. And then it got right to the end, and Elaine was like, do you want to try on one more dress? And I was like, yeah, I'll try on one more dress. She was like, okay, do you mind if your dress is not white? I was like, as long as it's not like bright pink. And it's quite funny because even though my dress looks white, it's not. It's actually a sand color. The underskirt is like a blush sand color, and then all of the lace on it is ivory. So it does kind of look white, but it's not. And we went behind the curtain, and she put the dress up, and it did have like the little kind of cap, like off the shoulder sleeves. And before those sleeves even went on, she just put the dress up. The sweetheart neckline fit right in my chest area. And I remember looking in the mirror, and I took a breath in, and I just went, this is my dress. And then we put the sleeves on, and she zipped it up, and I walked out, and I was like, this is it. I just knew. I knew it was my dress. And I could not wait to get back into that dress on the wedding day. And let me tell you, I have never felt, I know it's so cheesy to say, more beautiful in that dress. It is the best thing I've ever worn. I wish I could wear it every single day. I felt like me in that dress, like the best version of me. We had breakfast brought up to the room. We had some Prosecco on the go. I didn't have anything to drink. I'm not a big drinker anyway. I was obsessed with drinking water. I was like, I need to stay hydrated. I do not want a headache. And I was peeing literally like every 30 minutes. Like I was getting my hair done. I was like, I'm sorry, I need to go pee, because I was just drinking so much water. But then it got to a point before we left where I was like, I need to stop drinking water. I'm just gonna need to pee like while I'm in my dress, and it's a big dress and I'm like worried about peeing. Funnily enough, I actually only peed 3 times once I got into my dress to the end of the night, which for me is some sort of record. Like, I do not know how. I think my bladder just disconnected. I was having such an out-of-body experience on my wedding day, my bladder just wasn't registering anything. But the morning was lovely. We woke up pretty early. It was like 6:15, and got up, had a shower, got organised. Everyone kind of got up and got ready. My maid of honour, Dee, I think struggled the most with waking up. You know, the hairdresser came and the makeup artist, and it honestly felt like I was very aware going into the wedding day that everyone says the day goes by so quickly, it's over in the blink of an eye. And I really didn't want it to feel like that. So I was so conscious of remaining present in the moment. Like, I swear every 10 minutes I took a breath and I was like, take it in, take it in. And we had like a good 4 hours of getting ready from like 7 until 11. That's 4 hours, right? Yeah, 4 hours of getting ready, and it felt like 4 hours. You know, it didn't feel like, oh, 30 minutes, oh, it was rush, oh, get your hair done, get this done. It was lovely and relaxed. Even when Aryan, our photographer, arrived, our photographer was AD Media, Aryan and Shay, they're a couple, and they were very just, yeah, we'll get the little bits and bobs photographed while you're getting, you know, your makeup finished, and then they went away to go and get some photos and videos of the groom and the groomsmen, and then they came back and got the finishing touches. You know, they were very much part of the day, but they were so unobtrusive and very conscious of like, this is your day and we're just here to kind of document it, which I thought was lovely. And I should also mention that our hair was done by Lindsay Love of Love Hair Glasgow. She did an incredible job. I adored my hair for the day. It didn't feel too tight, it wasn't sore at all, even though I had a lot of pins in it. And she really took her time to make sure that, you know, my tiara was sitting properly, and then braided around the tiara the way that I wanted. My mum's hair was stunning. Oh my god, I remember looking at it and being, oh my goodness, that's lovely. It looked like a rose, like it looked like a flower. It was so nice. And another little funny anecdote, Lindsay had stayed around to put my veil on, so we got my dress on and everything. You know, this was kind of towards the end of the getting ready part. The girls were both in their dresses, my mum had her dress on, I stepped into my dress, and I remember worrying about the velcro, because I had a velcro on my underskirt and it was scratching me, and I was like, oh, I don't want it to be scratching me, because as soon as that dress is up, like, I won't be able to get at it. But we fixed it all, got me into my dress, Lindsay put the veil on, and I did want to film a couple of TikToks. That was the only social media. I was taking loads of photos. I was like, I'll upload them to Instagram stories later. If you haven't seen them, you can go to my Instagram profile and it's on the highlight wedding. And I had a couple of videos I wanted to film for TikTok. So I put the phone down and I went to the window and I went to film a selfie video, and I was like, there's something not right with my veil. It looked so 80s, like it was so poofy and like all the way up around my head. And I turned around to the girls and I was like, we need to fix this veil. This is not at all how Elaine at Wedding Wise had sat it. She'd sat it like a bit further back so that it was still on the top of my head, but it just fell down, which is how I wanted it. So, you know, we quickly fixed that. I had a mini moment of panic because Lindsay had left, and I was like, oh no, like what if it messes up my hair? But it didn't, and everything was fine. So when I woke up in the morning, well, the day before actually, this is going to be such a rambling and long video, I'm so sorry. The day before, it had said that it was gonna get warm. And when I woke up, it was really grey, really misty, really foggy, and I'd taken Whiskey out for a walk, and I actually fell. There was a reactive dog on the street across from me, and Whiskey doesn't usually bark or anything, but that dog started barking, and then Whiskey like walked in front of me and I tripped over him, and I actually still have like a scrape on my shin. I came down really hard on my leg, and I was like, Jesus, of course I fall, like the day before my wedding. I actually fell the day after my wedding as well, going up to the spa. I fell up the stairs, and I still, you see it here, like I skinned all of my elbow. Fell the day before, fell the day after. Thank God I didn't fall the day of. And the weather forecast was very good. Like, it was the best I could ever have hoped for. I think the forecast was sunny all day and like 21, 22 degrees. I was like, that's perfect. And I remember sitting in the chair while I was getting my hair done, and I kept looking out the window behind me, and it was just steadily getting nicer and nicer. It was cloudy when we woke up, but it's Scotland, so of course it would be. And it burned off so fast. Like by 9:30 it was just blue sky, and I was like, I can't believe I've got the perfect weather for my wedding day. Like, I almost get emotional thinking about it. I know that's so stupid for a lot of you guys that live in sunny countries, but in Scotland, to get a day with no cloud and just blue sky, it's so rare. I mean, I was regretting it a little bit later when my dress was so big and I was sweating buckets, but I'll get to that. But we headed out. I was in my dress, and as soon as I was in my dress and it was zipped and buttoned, and our wedding coordinator Beverly, she was lovely. I can't speak highly enough of the Gledach. They were amazing. As soon as I was in everything and everyone was kind of ready to go, I got very nervous. And I don't usually get quiet. Like, obviously I talk for a living, but I got very quiet. And I remember trying to do all my like anxiety breathing techniques, and we were walking down the stairs. We got into the foyer of the Gledach, and we got given our bouquets, and the bouquets were stunning. You know, it was Almond Blossom florists in Barhead that did our flowers, and again, cannot recommend them highly enough. I'm putting all this in a blog post as well, but they captured exactly what I wanted. For the bridesmaids, I'd asked for like a wildflower kind of posy, you know, nothing too structured. Like, I really wanted like the wild lilacs and the, I can't remember, the chrysanthemums, and I wanted a couple of white roses and baby's breath, and they looked perfect. And then my bouquet, it was a waterfall of just creams and whites and greenery, and I remember being surprised at how heavy my bouquet was. I wasn't expecting it to be that heavy. But they brought it to me, and I know that at some point my mum had tied on my gran's miraculous medal, which was my something old and something borrowed, because it now belongs to my mum, and also so I could have my gran with me on my wedding day, which was really important to me. And she tied it on with blue threads. That was also my something blue, and my something new was my dress and like everything else. But I don't remember that. Like, at that point I was starting to have an out-of-body experience. I was like, oh my god, it's my wedding day, it's actually happening. And it was like I had tunnel vision. I could no longer see anything around me. Like, I don't remember where the bridesmaids went. I didn't even see the bridesmaids' car. I barely even registered what our wedding car looked like. My mum got into it, and then the driver was lovely. It was Met Cars that did our cars, and I stepped in. I remember it's like I got my 2 feet in and my head in, and I like squatted in the dress, and then I like pivoted in it and sat down. It was the only way that I could sit in that dress, and it was very warm. And I remember Dee, my maid of honor, handing me a bottle of water in the car. And in the car, my mum and I, we didn't really say very much. We were talking a lot to the driver about his experiences of driving people to weddings, and he was talking about his daughter getting married, and my mum's eyelash started coming off because there's no AC in those old cars, obviously, so we'd rolled the windows down, and she'd been crying a little bit, obviously, happy tears. So her eyelash started coming off a bit, and she was like, I'll just take it off. I was like, no you won't, like leave it on, like it looks fine, like no one will notice. And I assume someone put the veil over my face. Again, don't remember that at all. But my veil did go over my face because there's pictures. And we walked in. I took my mum's arm, and I remember seeing His name is Daniel Beryl. He's the brother of a girl I went to school with. And for some reason, he must have just been like doing his shopping in there in Neilston, or walking his dog or something, and he was there, and I haven't seen him in like 15, 20 years, and I was like, Daniel? What are you doing here? And the square was kind of dotted with like some neighbours and my grand's friends and friends of the family who weren't necessarily invited to the wedding but had come down to kind of see me go in, which was just lovely to see their faces. And we walked into the church, and everything happened so fast. Like, I was expecting a little bit of a pause, and if there's one thing I kind of wish we'd done better, it was fix the back of my dress. And my dress had a very wide oval train, which looking back probably wouldn't even have fitted down the aisle at St Thomas's. But very, very quickly it was time to walk down the aisle. You know, there was no real pause at all. And I couldn't hear the music. We had a string quartet playing Pachelbel's Canon, and I couldn't hear it, and I was a bit worried about that because I had very specific timings in mind for when we would walk down. I'm squinting because I'm looking at the time. This is going to be such a long video, I'm so sorry. And Katie went to walk down, and I was like, no, wait. And she looked at me as if like, why are we waiting? And I was like, yeah, you're right, I can't even hear the music, just go. So she walked down, and then Dee walked down, and then one of the doors was still closed. They're swing doors in St Thomas's, they kind of open out. And one of the doors was closed, and Gillian, the organist, was holding the other door open. And she was like, oh, are you going to fit through the door? And I was like, it's okay, my mum can kind of go in first, and then I'll come in just behind her. And the second I walked through those doors, I was looking at the ground because I was making sure I could like get through. And I remember the red carpet, seeing the bottom of my dress, and I was holding onto my mum's arm, and I heard Pachelbel's Canon for the first time. Before I had even looked up, before I had even seen Paul, I was already in tears. It was like those kind of feral tears that just come, like, without warning, sobbing, and you can't stop it. And then I looked up, and I was aware I was walking too fast, first of all, so I remember slowing my mum right down, and I was aware that there were people on either side, and I could see phones. All I saw was Paul. Again, it was like having tunnel vision. Like, from that minute that I left the Gledach, it was tunnel vision. And I looked at him, and everything else is blurry and out of focus, and he was just, like, the sun was coming in behind him as well. Like, it was so romantic, it was so nice, and he was just tall and handsome, and it was just perfect. And I remember seeing that he was also crying, which didn't surprise me at all, and I was doing this weird thing with my face where I was like crying but like still trying to smile, so it was just very strange. And we got down to the end of the aisle, and my mum put my hand in his, and she said something like, you're just borrowing her or something. I can't remember what she said, but people laughed. And then Paul put the veil over my face, which again I don't remember, and I don't really remember anything solidly until we were sitting in the chairs. So in a Catholic wedding, the bride and groom go and sit down while some of the kind of service is going on before they say the vows. So we sat down in the chairs, and then I remember being present again. And I looked out, and I remember being really pissed off, and I'm still a bit bitter about it, that the best man and the groomsmen did not fill up the church equally. So I had said the first 2 rows should be reserved for immediate family, and I said fill up the church every row after that. And for whatever reason, on the side closest to us, all of Paul's family were in the front, which is what we'd said, and then all of my family were like behind them instead of being on the other side. And there were some of like my guests and Paul's guests on the other side, but the only people that I could see in the church while we got married, apart from being my mum and my bridesmaids, were our Dutch friends and his family. And I remember being a little bit annoyed, sitting there thinking, I wish I could see my family's faces. And I think everyone wants to see their family's faces when they get married anyway, and I did see some of them, and it's fine. But it was just one of those niggling things, and I know, let the little things go, it's never going to be perfect. That is one thing that really did annoy me, and still annoying me a little bit, and I should probably try and get over it, right? And again, I don't remember every word of the service. It was my uncle Brian, he's a deacon who married us, and I don't remember all of the service. I remember he started off, I don't know why, it was very lovely but very sad that the first thing he mentioned was about our side of the family. You know, the last time we'd all gathered together as a family were very sad events. You know, we had my cousin Michael's funeral last year, and we had my grand's funeral 2 years prior. So, you know, the last big family gatherings, yes, they were quite sad, but I was already really emotional after having walked down the aisle. So for that to be the first thing that he said, I just kept crying, and I was like, I don't have a tissue, I need a tissue. And I looked, and Paul's mum was sitting in the front row, and I was like, do you have a tissue? Please tell me you have a tissue. She passed it to Paul, who passed it to me. And then I remember the readings. I remember Paul's mum, she did the first reading. And I remember, she's a very quiet person, and I remember thinking, you need to go closer to the microphone. It was in Dutch anyway, so like half the congregation couldn't understand her, but I think it was a really nice symbol to have her, to have part of our ceremony be in Dutch. And then my cousin Shannon got up to do the responsorial psalm, and then my bridesmaid Katie got up to do the second reading and fell on the way back down, which was very funny. And she was really embarrassed, and she was like, oh no. And I just think it makes the service a little bit more memorable. Like, I actually quite liked that she didn't fall hard, like it was just a little stumble. But I thought it gave the ceremony a bit of character, shall we say. And then we stood up to say our vows, and that's mostly a blur. I remember bits and pieces. I remember Paul getting confused again. In the Catholic service, we had our wedding rings, and you take it and you say something while touching each finger. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, Amen, and then you put it on. And I remember him getting confused, even though we'd practiced it the day before. And then I also remember in his vows, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. I think it was for richer and for poorer. He put on a Scottish accent when he said it. He went, for richer or for poorer. And it made me burst out laughing. It made me laugh so hard. I was like, stop it. And then when I was saying my vows, he started crying. And it made me kind of like catch my breath. And I lifted a finger up to him in warning, like, stop, or I won't get through this. I tried to choose 2 very well-known hymns, and we also had like a hymn book. So everyone had the words. And the hymn started, and I could only hear my Uncle Eugene. He was the only voice I could hear. I don't know if anyone else was singing. I don't think they were. So I very quickly like got Paul's mum to give me her book, and I was like, give me that. I was like, I'm gonna duet this with my uncle if I have to. So I just started singing incredibly loudly, like I always have done in that church. And while it would have been nice to have everyone singing, again, I think that's just like a little nice anecdote of, yeah, it was just me and my Uncle Eugene duetting the communion hymns. And then when Eugene had communion, it was just a solo at that point. But it was really lovely, and we walked out to the music Who Is She from the live action Cinderella, and there were so many cheers I could barely hear the music. But that was just, again, so wonderful and so lovely. And we came out of the church, and we'd stood kind of just outside of the gates, not for any particular reason, but everyone just kind of automatically formed a line to like say congratulations. So we ended up like greeting every single person, and I just remember getting really tired towards the end of it, because we had French, we had Dutch who like to kiss on each cheek. So Dutch it's 3 kisses, for French it's 2 kisses. And towards the end I was like, guys, we're just doing a high five or a hug. Like, I'm not kissing any more people. Like, this is just too much. And then everyone was kind of milling about. We did our confetti toss as we walked out, and then we went and we got in the car. And I remember sitting in the car, and we had a glass of champagne, and I looked at my wedding ring and I said to Paul, I was like, does this feel real to you? And both of us just kind of being like, it almost feels like we're playing dress up in the weirdest way. Like, we got married, like the ceremony that I had always imagined my whole life, like that moment of walking down the aisle is done, and it almost doesn't feel real. Like, we know it happened, but like it was a very odd sensation. Like, none of it felt super serious, and maybe that's a sign of how much me and Paul love each other, how comfortable we are with each other, confident in our relationship. I don't know, that it didn't feel like anything massive, like, oh my god, now we're married. It just felt like another, not like another day, it was a very, very special day, but it felt, yeah, it didn't have like a weighty gravity to it. It had like a fun, euphoric kind of vibe. I don't know how to even explain it, but we went off on the car ride back to the Gledach, and my aunt had packed us sandwiches, which I had asked for because I knew we would be starving. I heard, this is me just remembering this, I heard Paul's stomach grumble during the ceremony when we were sitting down in the chairs. I remember my uncle was talking and I heard a grrr, and I turned and I was like, are you hungry? And we both started laughing. I just remembered that. I'd completely forgotten that until, this is why I'm filming this video, see? Haha, little things that I would have forgotten otherwise. And I was extremely warm at this point. This is where it kind of started. The car ride on the way back from the church. So I'd been wearing my dress for about 3 hours at this point, and my shoes were comfortable. They were still high heels, but they were comfortable. And we walked through to the terrace, and the whole terrace was in the sun apart from one little step at the side. And I immediately said to Paul, we're standing over there, because I knew that if I was standing out in the sun I would not make it. So we went and stood over in the shade as kind of the rest of the guests arrived and came through to the back and got their glass of champagne and their canapes. And I think it was actually a really smart choice, because me and Paul just stood there and it gave us you know, a little bit more time to kind of just be the two of us and have a chat and enjoy it. But at the same time, some of our guests came over to get a picture with us, or again say congratulations or chat a little bit more. Our photographer came over and asked if we could start the photos. So we tried to gather everyone around and we went down the stairs, and it was a big wedding party. We had 100 people at our wedding. I have an extremely large family, and our photographer, I didn't know it before we booked him, does not have a loud voice. So no one was really, like, some people were listening, but you know what it's like when there's like a big group of people, everyone's talking and saying different things and paying attention to different things. So I really needed my photographer at that point to be like, everyone, shut up, look at the camera. You know, but Aryan, he's very polite, which is lovely and everything as well, but he was like, can we all look at the camera now? And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. So I volunteered to be the one shouting at everyone, which worked for the most part, until I got extremely hot. So we had done, I had put together a list for Aryan, but I hadn't put names on it, which was my mistake. So I had put like groom with grandparents, or, you know, bridal couple with bridesmaids, instead of putting names. I should have done that, because then Aryan could shout out names and everyone would pay attention. And again, I was seriously overheating at this point, because it had taken a little while to get everyone to come down, reposition us all with like the nice view and the correct lighting. And the way we were standing on the grass, the sun was right in front of us, so the sun was just beating down on us. We were in every photo, so we were just standing there, and I just really needed people to be more efficient. Like, I just wanted people to stand there and wait till they were called, and then they could fuck off. Like, that's what I wanted. So I said to Paul, I was like, right, we'll do your family first. In military style, I basically did, you come in, you go out, you come in, you come back, you go that way, you stand there. And I directed everyone, and I know for a fact that Paul's family got all of the photos that we wanted. They all left. My family was more difficult, because in the period of time we were taking the photos with his family, my family had kind of wandered off everywhere. So I have zero recollection of who I got a photo with on my side of the family. And it's scaring me a little bit, because I don't have the photos back yet, because I was so hot. Like, this is maybe TMI, my legs were wet. Like, my stomach, from the bottom of my corset, my stomach, down to my knees was wet. Like, to the point where I was like, I'm going to need a towel. And my high heels were stilettos, so they were sinking into the grass. So I was up further on like the balls of my feet. So the balls of my feet were getting really sore. My back was sore from standing. I was wet with sweat. I was so thirsty. and my patience was wearing very, very thin. At this point, I didn't care about the photos anymore. I was like, I don't care. I need shade, I need a seat, and I need some water. At this point, we went with our photographer. It was quite a natural break. Like, we'd come away from the guests to sit and have a little rest. And then we went out the front of the hotel while all of the guests were still at the back to get our couples photos, just the two of us. And we lined up outside of the room, the reception room, because the wedding party were going to get piped in by the piper, and then the piper would come back to pipe me and Paul in. And Shay came up with the microphones for the speeches, so she mic'd up Paul, and then she had like a little stick microphone for me, and she was like, where am I gonna put it? And I just went, in here. And it stayed really well, and it made her really laugh. And I remember Dee getting a couple of cheeky photos of me and Paul at that point. And we walked into the room, we were being piped in, which was lovely. Went to sit down at the top table, and for some reason my dad thought it would be a good idea to like stuff all of my dress under the table. I literally couldn't sit down, so I had to come back out and reassess. And I'd started to get, again, a little bit nervous at this point. Nowhere near the nerves of, like, this before the ceremony. Like, I do not get nervous. I love being the center of attention. I was really weirded out about why I was getting nervous before the ceremony. But yeah, before the speeches, public speaking, even though I do it for work and I'm used to it, like, I was still a little bit like, oh, okay, I still need to talk to 100 people. And Paul did his speech first, and I remember this felt a bit rushed. Like, we'd only just sat down, the applause had only just stopped, and then Paul's speech was announced. I feel like that was a little bit rushed. But he stood up, and I remember being a bit worried for him, because he doesn't really enjoy public speaking like most people. Oh wait, was his speech first, or was my mum's speech first?
Your mom's.
Was it my mum's? Are you eavesdropping to make sure I say nice things?
Yes.
So my mum's speech was first, and similarly to Paul, she loathes being the centre of attention. She was really worried about it, and I had actually heard her speech a few days before. She'd read it out to both me and Paul because she just wanted to make sure it was nice, and I knew it was lovely. You know, she said some really beautiful things in it, and I honestly think she did so well in her speech. You know, not just what she said, which was just perfect, but you know, she was nervous, she was shaking a little bit, but she spoke so well with so much emotion, and you know, she did cry a little bit, but it wasn't anything major. She was nervous. It was funny, at one point the microphone was getting lower and lower and lower, and I was like, I want people to be able to hear her, so I like pushed the microphone up. And she just let go of it and then used me as a microphone stand for the rest of it, which I found quite funny. And then similarly, Paul's speech, it was, again, just perfect. Like, what he said was amazing.
It was good.
It was very good. You want to come in and say something about the wedding?
No, let you do
No?
talking.
Let me do it. Okay.
But it was good.
It was very good.
Very good.
He keeps making me lose my train of thought. And in his speech, I'd heard some of his speech as well. The only thing I hadn't heard of his speech was what he was going to say about me. And there's a couple of points that I remember him saying. He was speaking about our long distance relationship and how hard we'd worked, and he said, we did it, baby, we're married. And he got a little bit emotional at that point. I didn't. And then right at the end, he said little one, which is his nickname for me, is little one. And that's when I got emotional, and I'm glad it was right at the very end of the speech, but his words that he said, they really touched me. You know, it was just perfect. And after the speeches were done, we started eating, so the food was brought out, and at this point I wouldn't say tired, I would say drained. Like, I was very quiet. And my mum was sitting beside me, and she was getting a little bit drunk at this point. I remember thinking, good for you, enjoy it. Like, the stress of everything is over, and now you get to just have fun. And I remember just sitting there. I wasn't even hungry, which is very strange for me. And I was looking out at all of our guests and thinking about the table plan that I'd spent so long trying to perfect, and thinking, yeah, I nailed it. Like, everyone was laughing, having fun, talking to each other. Like, there was such a nice like ambiance of the room, which was just lovely. And I really did just sit the whole meal for me the meal was less about the food and more about the people. Like I was just enjoying watching everyone gathered there in one room together. And then between the main and dessert, a few people had kind of wandered off outside, you know, as happens, and my friends Kira, Nadine and Jenny all came to the top table and kind of sat around me, and we had a lovely conversation. I don't really remember what we spoke about, but I remember that it was lovely, and it was just nice to have time with them. And the brownie, actually, the dessert came after that, and I did eat the whole brownie. The brownie was delicious. And then everyone kind of started making their way. I think after that, actually, before the meal was totally finished, I went outside and I had some conversations with some people, and I got some photos taken with people. And then I grabbed Paul and my maid of honor and my bridesmaid and my mum. We all went upstairs to the honeymoon suite so that I could get more comfortable. I've forgotten a funny story at this point in the respect of getting more comfortable. When me and Paul were getting the couples photos done is the first moment where I realised that I needed to pee. So I went into the disabled bathroom because it's a little bit bigger. Paul held my dress up from the back, and if you're a bride, if you have a big dress like I did, you pee facing the cistern. But unfortunately the way I moved or something popped the top button on my dress. And neither me or Paul really noticed. I heard something pop and I said to Paul, "Has my dress ripped?" And he looked and he said no. And then the whole way through dinner, when I was leaning forward to eat, like my dress was like kind of gaping, and I was like, why? Like, why is this? It was so like flush to my body, like when we'd started the day, but I was like, oh, maybe because it's warm, it's stretched. And then when we went upstairs, we realized that actually it was the hook and eye at the very, very top. The hook had come, or the eye bit, the hook goes through, had completely come off. So I had to send my maid of honor Dee to find some safety pins to like try and fasten it a bit more. It wasn't ever totally perfect against me again, but it was better than it was at dinner. Like I was like, we're about to go dancing, like my boobs cannot escape now. I don't have much, but I still don't want them out there. The veil came off, my bridesmaid Katie took my veil off. I took my shoes off, my feet were so swollen because it was so hot, and I put slippers on, and I felt like a new woman. Immediately my mood completely changed. Getting the veil off, meaning that I could turn my head better, the shoes off so I could walk more comfortably, it made so much of a difference. And also my shoes, not only were they very pointy, they also had diamantes on the back which kept catching on the underskirt, so my whole underskirt is ripped. Luckily Paul Zoma is a seamstress, so she can maybe help me fix it. Nothing on the outside of the dress was bad, it was really just the underskirt. We safety pinned the back of it, and then what else did we do? And we went downstairs and we went straight into the cake cutting. Paul was a bit annoyed that we didn't actually get to cut the whole thing. He said that we only got to stab the cake. And then we did our first dance, which was to Elvis Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love with You. And we just did like a very like sedate shuffle. I don't even think it can be called a waltz. But our band were called Casey and the Night Shift, and they were fantastic. Like, you know, some bands where like they'll play one really good song and then there's always a song where you're like, oh, I'm gonna leave the dance floor. There were no songs where you were like, I'm gonna leave the dance floor. They were all good songs. So after our first dance, like my aim was like, let's just get everyone up on the dance floor. And obviously at the very beginning it's quite quiet, you know, some people are still outside, some people are still recovering from dinner, etc. And we'd went out to see our donut wall because we'd hired a donut wall, which actually it wasn't in the best position. I don't think there were that many people. I think if it had not been nice weather, loads of people would have seen it because everyone would have been inside, because it was such a nice day, everyone was outside. And me and Paul got a couple of fun pictures with the donuts and stuff. And then we wanted to get some sunset photos. So at this point it was about 9 o'clock and my good friend Nadine had actually come to the rescue and bustling my dress. Because I knew something wasn't right with it, and she came in and she was like, no, this is how you do it. And we were discussing with our photographer about going to get sunset photos and where we were going to do them, because initially we'd wanted to go up the golf course for the view, but we were told that because the golf person wasn't there, we couldn't go. And it was a family friend, Danielle, who had been married at the Gledhow 2 years prior, had come up and was like, no, you absolutely can go out. She's like, I'll drive the golf cart if I have to. And I was like, no, Beverly told us we couldn't. And she was like, I'll go ask the staff. So like 2 minutes later, she came back with Amy, who's a staff member that made our night amazing. And Amy was like, I'll drive the golf buggy, come out the front. So she'd put like linen sheets and everything on the golf buggy so that my dress wouldn't get ruined, and unfortunately I had to drag Paul away from a whiskey, and he got on the back of the golf buggy with his whiskey in his hand, and they drove us up to the 16th tee, and the view was incredible. And I will recommend sunset photos to any couple out there. It's perfect because we got taken up there in the golf buggy, the two of us first, and it was silent. And we were up there and we were standing on the cool grass. I took my slippers off and everything. We were standing on the cool grass. The sun was just going down. We had a beautiful view, and it was just the two of us. And we just took 5 minutes of looking at each other and saying, we're married. This is our wedding day. We are husband and wife. Like, we've done it. And at that point it was about 9 o'clock at night, so we still had like 4 hours to go. Like, the day was by no means over. But we just had a little bit of extra time to really be together. And because my veil was off, my dress was bustled, my feet weren't sore anymore, I was really into taking photos with the sun. Like, I was saying to the photographer, like, oh, can we do this? Can we do this? Let's do this. And you know, that was a really nice moment, I think, for a photographer as well, where we could play around a little bit more and help. The sun was going down, so it was a little bit cooler outside. And then we went back down, and I don't think I left the dance floor to the point where I was like, I'm neglecting the rest of my guests. Like, I'm just dancing the whole night. And I had only had those 2 glasses of champagne on arrival, and my cousin gave me a shot on the dance floor and made me do a shot in the middle of the dance floor. But my whole family, my cousins specifically, were all dancing, we're all getting into it, we're all having the best time, and I just didn't want to leave the dance floor. And I danced the night away, literally. And Paul was on the dance floor a lot as well, which really surprised me because he's not a big dancer. And I just had so much fun. Like, I'm not really a big party person or anything like that, you know, but I didn't have a headache, my feet didn't hurt anymore, I wasn't too hot or too cold, I wasn't tired, I was wired to the moon. Like, I had so much energy, I was so happy. And honestly, at one point I think Paul's family were just sitting down and wondering what kind of in-laws they were getting, because my family is batshit crazy. You know, there's this Scottish thing where we start shouting, here we fucking go. We were screaming it, and I think his whole family were like, what on earth? And some of the Dutchies danced, but not as much as, you know, our family did. And honestly, it was just wonderful. It was wonderful. It was just so perfect. And I almost missed the evening buffet. I did take some time off, and I went out and chatted to some people on the terrace, as well, as the sun was like gone. And then we went back in and danced and danced and danced. And right at the end of the night, I remember going outside, and Paul was standing outside, and I walked out beside him, and we were just looking up at the stars and at the moon, and just really being like, yeah, are we gonna go up to bed now? Like, are we gonna call it a night? Is the wedding day over? And we were like, yeah, it is. Okay, let's go. And it was just a nice moment. And as we were leaving to go up to the honeymoon suite, there was a hen party that was in, and they were sitting there very drunk, and they were like, oh ho ho, you're going up to the honeymoon suite. And I was like, no, we're both really tired, I think we'll just go to sleep. But it was just a perfect day. And I know I've rambled, and I know this video's too long, and I know no one will have watched to the end, but I just wanted to reminisce and remember the day as I remember it before I see my wedding video. I've already written it all down, like from the very first minute to the end. Editing this is going to be a nightmare because I've spoken for so long, but it really was the perfect day. And yeah, I wish I could go back in time and relive it. That's never going to happen. But I also don't feel like the day went by in a blink of an eye. I think in the grand scheme of your life, one day obviously is going to be nothing, but so many days go by like that. You know, even today, like the hours, like it's 4 o'clock. What time is it? Yeah, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I feel like I blinked and it's 4. But on my wedding day, I was so aware of the moments that I feel like we really took it all in. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've made it to the end, let me know in the comments. And obviously I'll put up the full wedding video and stuff by itself. But I hope you enjoyed these little clips that I did have.